For today's notes, you will need in class 51. This is the second part of standard 12, and we are going to be working on a second kind of special right triangle today. Yesterday's triangle was a 45-45-90 triangle, which meant that it was isosceles and had a right angle. This triangle is going to be a 30-60-90, which means there's a 30-degree angle, a 60-degree angle, and a 90-degree angle. So this right triangle comes from taking an equilateral triangle, which we learned about in first semester, and splitting it in half. So this is going to be half of an equilateral or equiangular triangle. That means that we end up with angles that are 30 at the top when that 60-degree angle is bisected, 90 at the bottom when that height is drawn in to divide that triangle in half, and then 60 on those outer corners from the original angles in the corners. Also, if we think through what we know about equilateral triangles, all of these sides would have been 10 to begin with, which means when we divide this triangle in half, that 10 also is divided in half. So what we can do to figure out some relationships in these 30, 60, 90 triangles is we can use our Pythagorean theorem from a previous standard. We can take the 10 as the C, the 5, and then this missing side here that we don't know would be the A and the B, and we can run through a real quick Pythagorean theorem calculation. 10 squared equals 5 squared plus, I'm just going to call this B squared. 10 squared is 100, 5 squared is 25. Subtract that 25 over, and then square root. And if you go through your process for simplifying root 75, you're going to end up with 5 root 3 as that missing side. And so what we have across from the 90 is 10, across from the 30 is 5, and across from the 60 ends up being 5 root 3. So we have the longest side across from the biggest angle, the shortest side across from the smallest angle, and then the medium length side, 5 root 3 is in between 10 and 5, across from the medium-sized angle. If we think about this in terms of L being the shortest side, most of you would probably agree with me that this looks like it's 2 times L. And then I'm noticing the L is showing up right here as well. So this is actually L root 3. So we have a completely different situation than we do with our 45-45-90s, but we still have a leg equal to L. We now have a second leg that's longer because that 60-degree angle is bigger than 30. L times root 3 will give us that side. And then the longest side of them all is that hypotenuse across from the 90. That's going to be twice whatever that shortest leg, or L, is equal to. Practicing that, if the picture rotates, across from the 30-degree angle is the shortest leg, that's L. Across from the 60-degree angle is the medium-sized leg, L root 3. And then the longest side is the hypotenuse, that one is 2 times L. If you ever forget which of these is bigger, just try to test out square root of 3 in your calculator. That's going to be 1.7-ish. 1.7L is less than 2L, so that means that L root 3 is across from 60, and then 2L, which is larger, is across from 90. All right, there are a couple of foundational skills that we're going to practice that are very similar to the in-class 50 notes, except instead of dealing with root 2s, we're going to be dealing with root 3s, because that's the root that's involved in our 30, 60, 90s. 6 times root 3 times root 3 is going to be 6 root 9, or 6 times 3, which is 18. In the second problem, we're going to multiply the two roots together to give us 5 root 45. But because that root is larger than the ones we started with, we need to make sure we can simplify that if possible. So if I try square root of 45, like I would over here with root 9, I don't get as lucky because that's not a perfect square. So we need to go through our process of figuring out what root 45 simplifies to be. If you're a factor table person, that might look like filling out a table with the factors until you find a pair of factors with a perfect square. Or if you're a perfect square person, you can rewrite that as root 9 times root 5, or you can do a factor tree. But you do need to be careful that there is a 5 sitting there that's going to multiply by whatever we get as our simplified radical for the root 45. The root 45 part of this is 3 root 5. The square root of 9 is 3. 5 returns to the radical. But then that 3 gets multiplied by the 5 that was already out there as a coefficient to give us our final exact simplified answer. When it comes to equations, we're going to deal with them the same way we did before. If there is a root available to be divided by root 3, that's the simplest way for that to happen. So in this case, x is just equal to 7. If there's not a radical available to be simplified by root 3, we can still do that, but then we'll have to rationalize by multiplying by an extra root 3 on that side of the equation, on the numerator and the denominator, which means x is really going to be 12 root 3 over 3, which simplifies to be 4 root 3. Remember, the alternative in this case, instead of rationalizing, I'll do this on number 5, is to multiply both sides of the equation by an extra root 3. That's going to give you 3 x's on the left and 11 root 3 on the right, and then you can do division by a regular integer number, which sometimes simplifies, but in this case does not. So x would be equal to 11 root 3 over 3 for that one. So you can pick either of those methods, rationalizing the denominator when a radical gets stuck or multiplying by it instead. Number 6 is another example where we can divide by root 3 because there's a root 6 there that can be simplified to be a root 2 after we divide it by root 3. All right, let's jump in and apply our special right triangle rules to solve for all of these missing sides. We're going to give our answers in exact simplified form, again, for all of these problems. All right, I start by thinking about where that L belongs. Across from the 30-degree angle is going to be L. Across from my 60-degree angle is going to be L root 3. And across from my 90-degree angle is going to be 2L. That means for this problem, I don't know the L yet, but I can if I divide by 2. That tells me that L is equal to 3. So now everywhere I see an L, I can plug in that 3. B equals 3, and A will equal 3 root 3. Let's do it again. Starting with that 30-degree angle, travel across, that's equal to L, so that's good news. I already know my L. Across from 60 is my medium length side, so that's the L root 3. Across from 90 is my 2L side. So now everywhere that there's an L, I can plug in a 5. Y will equal 5 root 3. And then x will equal 2 times 5, which is just 10 when we simplify. Number 3 gives me the 30-degree angle already marked on the triangle, so across from that 30-degree angle is L. The 60-degree angle would be here. Across from there is L root 3, and then across from the 90 is 2L. I don't know my L yet, but I can find it by dividing by root 3 in this equation, which means that L is now equal to 6. Since those root 3's reduce and go away. Everywhere we've got an L, we can now plug in a 6. So y turns out to be 6, and x turns out to be 2 times 6, or 12, when we simplify. Number 4, I see my 30-degree angle again, so across from 30 is going to be the shortest leg, which is L. 60 is up here, so across from that angle is going to be my medium-sized leg. I wrote 6 there for some reason. L root 3. And then across from the right angle is going to be 2L. I don't know L yet, but I can find it if I just divide that equation by 2. L is 3/2, or I suppose if you wanted to write it as 1.5, you could. I'm going to leave it as 3/2, and then everywhere I see an L, I can plug in 3/2. So that means that y is equal to 3/2, or 1.5, and then x is equal to 3/2 root 3. The best way to write that in simplified form is to put that root 3 in the top of the fraction and to say x is equal to 3 root 3 over 2. All right, let's head to page 2 and see what other kinds of examples we find there. Question 5. My 30-degree angle is empty, but I know it's over here because I see the 60 and the 90. So across from the 30 is going to be the L. Across from the 60 will be L root 3. And then across from the 90 will be 2L. I don't know L yet, but I can find it by dividing by root 3 to simplify this part of the problem. That's going to tell me that 9 is equal to L. So everywhere I see an L, I can now plug in 9. 9 is equal to y. X is going to be 2 times 9, so 18 when I simplify. Number 6, our 30-degree angle is up top in that empty spot, so across from there is the L. That's nice, I know what L is already. Across from 60 is L root 3. Across from 90 is going to be 2L. So if I already know that L is 6, I can plug 6 in everywhere that there's an L. So y equals 6 root 3, or x equals 2 times 6, which simplifies to be 12. Continuing on, the 30-degree angle is missing at the top, so if I travel across from that, that's going to be the L, the shortest side. Across from 60 will be L root 3, and then across from 90 will be 2L. I don't know the L yet, but it looks like I can easily divide both sides of that equation by root 3 to find it. 2 is equal to L, so now everywhere I see an L, I plug in a 2. Y equals 2, and x equals 2 times 2, which is 4. 3 more examples, and then we'll talk about how the rest of this assignment is going to be a little bit different, or the rest of these notes. 30-degree angle is missing at the top, so across from that is going to be the shortest leg, L. Across from 60 will be the medium leg, L root 3, and then that hypotenuse across from the 90 will be 2L. I don't know the L yet, but I can go ahead and divide both sides by 2 to find it. L is 8. So now everywhere I see an L, I can replace it with 8, which gives me y equal to 8 and x equal to 8 root 3. 2 to go. Across from the 30 is the shortest leg, so there's the L. Across from the 60 is the medium leg, so there's the L root 3. And then across from 90 is the hypotenuse, so there's the 2L. Dividing both of these by 2 is going to tell me that L is equal to 9/2, or 4.5. We're going to replace all of our L's then with 9 over 2. So for y, that's all we do. And for x, we're going to make that root 3 live in the numerator with the 9. And x will be equal to 9 root 3 over 2. Last one for this page. Our 30-degree angle is missing, so we fill it in and travel across to the opposite side to find L. Great. Across from 30 is going to be L root 3, and across from 90 will be 2L. Everywhere we see an L, we can plug in 5 root 2. So that 5 over 2, So that 5 root 3 over 2 will be my y. The root 3 joins the 5 in the numerator. And then over here, I'm going to need to do 2 times 5 over 2 to find my x. That's really 10 over 2 or just 5 when we simplify. All right, all 10 of those examples are what we call matched information. So that just means that the number that they gave us worked out reasonably well with the labels on the sides. We didn't have to deal with too much strangeness or weird simplifying. As we move into the remaining examples, that's going to change, and we're going to be dealing with things that are called unmatched. Your teachers are probably taking 2 class days with this lesson, so this might be the end of day 1, and then the rest of the video might be day 2, just depending on how they split up the notes. All right, let's move on to example 11, and we'll see what I'm talking about. We use the same process, we just might have to do more in terms of simplifying. I see the 30-degree angle and the 90, so here's my 60. The shortest side is still across from 30, and that's equal to L. Across from 60 is L root 3, and across from 90 is 2L. Now I can tell what my L is equal to. So even though that number is kind of strange, that's going to replace L in all of these other places. So if I'm dealing with U, I'm going to do 2 times 5 root 3. The integer numbers we're going to multiply together. So U is going to equal 10 root 3. Over here, when I'm dealing with V, I need to take my L, which is 5 root 3, and multiply it by another root 3. Root 3 times root 3 is root 9, which is regular 3. So that side actually ends up not having a root by the time it gets simplified. It's just equal to 15. So just a little bit more work on these in terms of how we have to simplify to get to our answers sometimes. Let's take a look at number 12 and see how that goes. I see my 30 and 90, so here's the 60. Across from 30 is the shortest side, so there's the L. Across from 60 will be L root 3, and across from 90 will be 2 times L. Since I know what L is equal to, I'm going to plug that in all of these places. U will be equal to 2 times 5 root 2, which is 10 root 2 when you simplify. And then V will be equal to 5 root 2 plugged in for L, and then a root 3 multiplied on. Root 2 times root 3 is root 6. And because we created a new root, we want to make sure we can't simplify it, because sometimes we'll be able to. So if you think about root 6, there aren't any perfect square factors. If you were to make a factor table, it would just be 1 and 6 and 2 and 3, no perfect squares. If you were to make a factor tree, it would just be 2 and 3, no matches. So that means 5 root 6 is an acceptable simplified answer for V. Number 13, our 30-degree angle belongs at the top. So across from there will be the L, the shortest side. Across from 60 will be L root 3, and then across from 90 will be 2L. We don't know L yet, but it looks like we can divide by root 3 to find it. And if we do that, 4 root 6 divided by root 3 simplifies to be 4 root 2. So everywhere we see an L, we're going to plug in a 4 root 2. That means that y is just equal to 4 root 2. And then over here, 2 times 4 root 2 will tell us x. 2 times 4 root 2 is going to be 8 root 2. Moving on to row 2. Our 30-degree angle and 90-degree angle are labeled, so there's our 60. Across from 30 will be the shortest leg, so there's the L. Across from 60 is the medium leg, L root 3. Across from 90, the longest hypotenuse side is 2L. So for this one, we're going to actually need to divide by 2 if I squeeze that in. Otherwise, we can copy that down here and work on it. 8 root 3 equals 2L. So we divide both sides by 2, and that means we get 4 root 3 equal to L. That's going to plug in everywhere we see an L. So 4 root 3 will equal N. Take care of that. But over here for M, L becomes 4 root 3, and then we have this extra root 3 to multiply by. That's when these two combine to make a new root 9, which is a perfect square, and is equal to 3. So M will be 12 when we get that completely simplified. This next one is going to be a little trickier than the others. We've got a 60 and a 90, so here's our 30-degree angle. Across from 30 is L. Across from 60 is L root 3. And across from 90 is 2L, same sides as always. I'm going to need to work on this equation in order to find L, but it's not super simple to divide by root 3. So I'm going to come down below to show my work. This is the one where there are 2 methods. I'm going to show both. So the first route is to divide by root 3, but then realize there's nothing to simplify, so we have to rationalize. So we multiply by that extra root 3 in the top and the bottom. That's going to leave us with L on the left, 9 root 3 in the numerator on the right, and regular 3 in the denominator. 9 divided by 3 is 3, and then there's a root 3 attached. Or the alternative, since division doesn't work super well, is to multiply both sides by root 3 instead. That'll give us a 3L equals 9 root 3 equation. And then we can come back in and divide by regular 3 to get to the same answer, 3 root 3. Which means everywhere there's an L, we're going to plug in 3 root 3. Y equals 3 root 3. And we're done. X equals 2 times 3 root 3. 2 times 3 root 3 is really 6 root 3. I don't have a real great place to write that, so I'm just going to kind of write it down below. X equals 6 root 3. And circle it up so that I can find it. All right, one more example on this page, and then we'll be on our final set. 30 and 90, so this one is 60. Across from 30 is the shortest side, so that's an L. Across from 60 is going to be our medium side, L root 3. And then across from 90 is the longest side, 2L. Divide both sides of this equation by 2 to figure out that L is equal to 4 root 6. Ooh, this one's going to be interesting. Everywhere we have an L, we can plug in a 4 root 6 now. Not so interesting with the Y. We plug in the 4 root 6 and we're done. But I'm going to move this down here. If I plug in 4 root 6 and I multiply it by a root 3 to figure out my X, that's going to become 4 root 18. Root 18 can probably be simplified. It's a larger root than we started with. So if we're a factor table person, we start making our factor table. Root 18 does not square root nicely, but 9 does. Or if we're a factor tree person, maybe we think of 6 and 3, and then 2 and 3, and we notice a pair of matching 3s and a leftover 2. Or maybe we're a perfect square person, so we rewrite this as a root 9 times 2. Whichever method you use is fine, but this root 18 right here is equivalent to 3 root 2. This extra 4 multiplies by that to give us our final answer for X, 12 root 2. That is definitely trickier than a lot of the other ones we've seen. All right, we are almost done. We've got one more page of examples, so let's make it happen. Oh my, this one has 9 on it instead of 6. All right, 30 degrees is across from the shortest side, 60 across from the medium side, 90 across from the longest side. Divide both sides of that equation by 2 to find our L. And plug it in everywhere we can. So Y is 10. and x is 10 root 3. 30 degrees at the top on the next one, which means across from there is our shortest side, so we've got our L already. Across from 60 will be L root 3, and across from 90 will be 2 times L. Take that L and plug it in everywhere we can. So for n, it will look like 3 root 3 root 3, which is 3 times 3, or 9. And then for m, it'll look like 2 times 3 root 3. 2 times 3 root 3 is 6 root 3. Number 19, our 30-degree angle is missing, but across from there will be the shortest leg. Across from 60 will be the L root 3, and across from 90 will be the 2L. This is one where we can't divide easily, so I'm going to go ahead and multiply both sides by root 3, but if you'd prefer to divide and then rationalize, you can. My equation will become 3L equals 3 root 3, which means when I divide by 3, that coefficient goes away, and L is just root 3. Take that L and plug it in everywhere we see an L. So x is going to be 2 times root 3, which is 2 root 3, and y is just going to be root 3. Number 20 is up next. 30 degrees is here, so L is our shortest side. 60 degrees sends me across to my L root 3 side, and then across from 90, we've got a 2L side. Find your L by dividing both sides by root 3. That means that L is equal to 7, and we plug it in everywhere we can to tell us that B is 7, and A is 2 times 7, or 14. 30, 90, 60 goes up top for number 21. Across from 30 will be L. Across from 60 will be L root 3, and across from 90 will be 2L. Be careful with these. Sometimes when people see a root 3, it doesn't matter where it's at. They just toss the L root 3 on that side. But this is not the L root 3 side. This is the hypotenuse, so it's equal to 2L. Divide both sides by 2, and that's how we'll figure out what L is truly equal to, and it happens to be a 2 root 3. Take that and plug it in. So 2 root 3 equals B, and then for A, we'll need a 2 root 3 times an extra root 3, which means we'll have 2 times 3, or 6, as our value for A. Across from 30 is our shortest side. Across from 60 is our medium side, and across from 90 is our longest side. This time we know what L is right away, so we can plug it in everywhere we see an L, which means y is 7 root 3, and x is 2 times 7, or 14. 3 to go. We've got a 60 and a 90, so here's our 30. Across from 30 is L. Across from 60 is L root 3. Across from 90 is 2L. Divide both sides of that equation by 2 to figure out that L is equal to 3 root 2 when you simplify, which means everywhere we see an L, we're going to be able to plug in a 3 root 2. There's our n, and then for this one, we need a 3 root 2 multiplied by root 3, which means 3 root 6. We already tried earlier to simplify a root 6 and saw that it couldn't be simplified, so that's the best we can do. 3 root 6 for m. 30 and 90, so 60 degrees in that missing corner for 24. Across from 30 is L, shortest side. Across from 60, medium side, L root 3. Across from 90, longest side, 2L. We try to divide by 2, but 5 doesn't divide so nicely by 2. So we're just going to say that L is 5 root 6 over 2. And anywhere we see an L, we'll plug that in. Y is going to take care of itself, 5 root 6 over 2. But X is going to be a little effort, so I'm going to bring it down here where I have a little bit of space. It's a little awkward. L is 5 root 6 over 2, and I need to multiply that by root 3. The root 3 belongs in the numerator, so that's really going to become a 5 root 18 over 2. But because I created a root that's larger than what I started with, chances are it can be simplified. Now, we already worked on a root 18 back here on question 16, so I'm just going to refer to the fact that the square root of 18, if I pop it in here, is equal to 3 root 2. But if you didn't already know that, you'd have the work to go with it, like one of these, to show how that simplifies. So this root 18 here simplifies to be a 3 root 2 in the midst of all of this other stuff. So what we want to do is simplify that numerator to be 15 root 2 over 2. That's going to be our official simplified answer for X. All right, very last one. We've got a 30-degree angle we can fill in at the top. Across from that 30-degree angle is our shortest side, L. Across from the 60 will be our medium side, L root 3. And across from the 90 is our longest side, 2L. Divide both sides of that equation by 2 to figure out that L is 3/2. And then plug that in everywhere we can. So V will be equal to 3/2, 3 over 2. And then U is equal to 3/2 root 3, but remember that root belongs in the numerator. So U is equal to 3 root 3 over 2. All right, thanks for hanging in there for all of those examples. You should be able to do your work for special right triangles of the 30, 60, 90 variety now. Thanks for watching. We'll see you back in class.